All right, thanks everybody for your patience. This is the November meeting of the Transportation Planning Committee of CB4, Manhattan CB4. We are doing this meeting virtually via Zoom due to current state protocols. The meeting is being recorded. We have established that we have quorum. I'm Dale Corvino. I'm the co-chair of this committee. My co-chair, Christine Berthet, is here. I know she's signing on from, she may not have the most stable of connections, but she is present. So, Christine, are you with us? Maybe not. Okay. All right, we're going to start with the first item on the agenda. Oh, and I also want to note that we are going. Hi, Christine. Just wanted to check your connection. Okay. We are gonna make one.
Very bad.
Yeah, it sounds not so great. Okay. You also have access. You can text or chat if you have something that you want me to amplify. We are going to run the meeting according to the updated agenda, which I hope everyone saw and reviewed. However, we are going to make one change in the interest of presenters, which is the item 4B, the Penn Station Advisory Group discussion will be the second item on the agenda. The item number 2, which was postponed because we did a site visit at West 53rd Street to look at parking regulations. Colleen was with us from the DOT, and we are going to make some proposed changes and give the neighbors an opportunity to review them at the next meeting. So that item will be on the December agenda. So yeah, we're going to have DOT present, and then we're going to talk about the Penn Station Advisory Group. So with that said, I invite Kimberly. You're running the presentation about 9th Avenue.
Hi, actually, if you guys could promote Mia as well. She's in the attendees list. She's from our pedestrian projects, our pedestrian unit, so she can share the presentation, I believe.
Kimberly, I'm sorry, can you repeat the name?
Or it's Mia.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, Mia Moffett.
yeah. So we have just a really short update. We just wanted to make sure you were kept in the loop because we know you have a strong interest in what happens on 9th Avenue. And so we've been coordinating with DDC over the past several months as they wrap up their work on 9th Avenue in Midtown and trying to make sure that one is the roadway is maintained safely throughout the rest of the construction, and also looking toward kind of updating the design of the street as they restore it in response to the interests from CB4. So Mia can walk through. We have a very, very short presentation just to kind of share with you guys. And then unfortunately, DDC was not able to join us tonight, but they said that if there's any questions, they're happy to follow up with the board. So we're happy to do follow-up conversations as needed, but just a really quick update.
All right, great, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Hi, I am Mia Moffett, Senior Project Manager in the pedestrian unit. I'm here to talk about 9th Avenue from 59th Street to 51st Street and give you all an update on what's going on here. So looking at this area, as you all know, there's been a huge DDC-DP water main capital project that has ripped up the whole roadway and temporarily reduced it to 3 lanes and taken out all of the concrete pedestrian islands. Wonderfully, the water main replacement capital work is fully complete now. They're beginning the roadway restoration now, and the full restoration won't be fully finalized until 2022. So right now, while they are working through finalizing the restoration, they are going to be restoring the roadway from 59th Street to 56 and 55 to 54th Street, working around where the open restaurant roadway setups are right now. So we've been working with them to put in some temporary markings here to maintain 3 consistent travel lanes and keep the area safe through the winter. This might also include some construction barriers just to like delineate space through the area while this is happening. But we all do want you to know that we did receive your request that you all submitted to us and to DDC to permanently remove one of travel lane, expand the east sidewalk, relocate where the pedestrians are, islands are, and to upgrade the mixing zones. And we've been working really hard with DDC on working through this design and getting all the final proposals in order to get this in during the final construction next year. And it'll look something like the below, but we don't have a final plan to share with you right now. So looking at the next steps for this, DDC is going to continue putting in these temporary markings this fall. We're going to keep on working with them on this final proposal this winter. And then we're going to come back to you all to finalize the outreach and to show you a full plan of the corridor and go over exactly what it's going to look like. And then in 2022, it'll be implemented. So that's all we have right now. So
very brief.
Let's discuss.
And we're still working through the exact temporary markings plan, but we just want to make sure that there's something out there that's safe and that keeps the lanes consistent throughout this stretch while we work through the final design. But we're excited to come back and share with you over the winter.
Great, thank you so much. Let me just go to, do we have any committee, and just for those attending, we are going to have discussion of this issue among the committee, and then we'll open it up to public questions. And I'm going to go first to Blake, since I see his hand up.
Thanks, Dale, and thanks for the presentation. I had two small questions. One is, I think a similar kind of resurfacing was done on 8th Avenue in a similar area, and it was quite loud. And I don't think there's any getting around the fact that it has to be done at night, but are you notifying the buildings that are adjacent to the roadwork area in advance if that's going to be the case?
So the resurfacing is actually DDC that's doing that. And they typically do, I think, notify, but we can follow up with that as a question or a comment for them.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. And then the other question was, I think in some of the areas, because the water project has been going on for such a long time, the outdoor dining stalls have been built adjacent to them. For example, if the water project was taking over part of a bike lane, the outdoor dining stall also was taking up the bike lane, which didn't really matter when the water project was there, but will matter now, when the bike lane is reopened. How are you managing that with the restaurants?
Yeah, so for the time being, during the temporary restaurant program, so far we've generally been allowing restaurants to stay in place and where they are and kind of work around them. So for a number of for bike lane projects, for example, around the city, we've built we've installed what we call maintenance protection of traffic. So the same thing we kind of do if something we're under construction to guide bikes around those locations as we work toward a permanent program in the future. We'll kind of think through how that's going to work. But for the time being, we've been generally accommodating, but also trying to maintain that bike space. So as we put in the temporary markings and as we look to implementation next year, we'll also be making sure that bikes do have that space, even if it's not directly at the curb where it typically would be, but making sure they have a place to be.
Great, thank you.
Tina.
Hi there. Just following up on Blake's comment about noise. Yesterday, there's work being done now between 59th and 60th Street, I believe. Bottom line is I was at 60th Street, and there was a cacophony of honking noise, and there was no movement of traffic, and the traffic went back to past our district into District 7. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to mention it, but all I can say is people were going crazy. Drivers were swerving around others, making wrong turns at lights just to get anywhere. So I don't know.
It is DDC's project right now, and they did say to bring things back to them and that they're happy to reach out and have follow-up conversations. So if there's, I'm taking note, but also if you guys want to take note and send it to them, that would be fine too. But I think we can follow up with them. Construction and noise and those issues.
Thank you.
Do we have any more hands up from the committee? I don't.
There's no hands raised from the community, but someone wrote a question in the Q&A and someone just raised their hand.
Okay, so if there are no further questions on this topic of so in general, Kimberly, can we say that, and Mia, can we say that the DOT is looking to, I know it gets a little complicated with like contract creep, but like the DOT is looking at whenever possible to make improvements along the way as a capital project like this water main replacement facility requires, like the tearing up the roadbed and then it gets replaced. Instead of like replacing it as it was before, we're moving the ball forward a bit. Is that a general takeaway we can?
I think that when the opportunity presents itself, yes, we would like to do that. And so, for example, we know obviously CB4 is really interested in seeing more offset crossings and fewer mixing zones. So when we do even just our in-house resurfacing, we're always looking at whether we can upgrade or update those designs. So I think when we're able to coordinate on the capital projects, that's certainly the case as well.
Great. I mean, I appreciate, I understand it's like, it's harder to design with a moving target in mind than it is with something static, like just put it back to where it was. And especially when it comes to, but yeah.
It's a lot of coordination, but we're excited that it looks promising and that we can move forward with an updated design. I
appreciate how it makes these projects more complex, but I also appreciate the results if in an improved streetscape. Okay, so if there are no more questions from committee members, I'm going to go to the public, and I'll voice this question that was put in the Q&A from Kendra. The section in front of my home, I think it's somewhere. I'm surmising it's somewhere in this area. Got resurfacing during the middle of the night, last 2 nights. How long until the paint comes? Because cars are already parking in the bike lane, which is now unmarked. Do you have any idea on the time frame on the green paint, the green?
Well, the green probably won't come in now because we're looking at doing this sort of temporary marking plan, as Mia mentioned. So we want to lay that out. It wouldn't be green paint, but because that's difficult to remove. So if we want to update the design on top of new pavement, we'd have to like remove all of that and it wouldn't really work well. So the plan is to have something temporary in place for the winter and then to come back with the newer plan in the future.
I see.
In the near future. So, but in general, putting the markings down should happen in the next couple of weeks. Usually when DOT puts in new asphalt, we do have to wait a little bit of time for the asphalt to cure before we can put the markings in. I think it's usually 1 to 2 weeks, but so I imagine it would be soon. And also markings can't go in when it's really cold. So I think DDC is really trying to get the markings in shortly.
So the temporary markings that delineate the bike lane will be like text that says bike lane and a white line. Is that? I
don't know. I don't know if we've gotten to the point of what exactly will be in the bike lane, but like we use different materials. So what Mia is showing here is like an example. Mia, I don't know if we've gotten into the details of whether there'll be the bike there, but it will be clearly denoted that it's the bike lane and not a travel lane.
Yeah, and we're looking at possibly putting in barriers as well, which will help.
Oh, like the flexible delineators.
Still working on like what kind of vertical element, like barrels or some other kind of like construction type of material, just something temporary to make sure it's safe for the winter.
Got it. All right. Next, I'm gonna go to who's got their hand? Charles. I see you have your hand up, and also you put your question in the Q&A. Would you like to speak, or I can read is the idea that open restaurants will be in the new pedestrian area? Oh, that's a good question. Nellie, why don't you bring Charles over?
Mia, do you want to put the other cross section?
Sure.
So Charles' question is in reference to the on the lower diagram, the 11 painted sidewalk.
So we would plan on moving the open restaurants into the parking lane here
I see.
and not on the painted sidewalk.
So the painted sidewalk would be an extension of pedestrian ways.
Yes, and it would be clear of all obstructions, including open restaurants.
Okay.
We'll also have a lot more detail on that when
we come back.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Charles Todd. I live on 54th Street. So thank you for that answer. I sort of have mixed feelings about that answer, though, because I know the real problem of the last year is that, in the bike lane, you have to deal with waiters who are coming back and forth. And I like the idea of the bike lane being on the other side of the open restaurants, so you're not having to bike through restaurants. I also love the idea. I mostly just wanted to speak to say I'm delighted that we're getting 11 feet of pedestrian space. I think that's fantastic. Thank you. Anything we can do to remove travel lanes and give more space to bikes and people is great. So I'm excited about that. And then my other question is this going to go further south, or how far south is this going to go?
So I think right now we're generally coordinating on this particular project. As we continue to look at the corridor over the winter, we can, think maybe about how far south it could go, and that might come like in a second phase or something like that. But maybe Mia has more to say about that. But generally, we're trying, like Dale said, to coordinate with DDC on this, which is a little bit tricky, just to make sure we get it in place with that restoration. But we're also looking at further along at 9th Avenue as well.
Great.
Yeah, I would say that the south of this area, we, there's an opportunity here because these pedestrian islands are removed. So if we did in the future want to expand this and do a future phase, we'd have to work around the existing islands. So it would look different, more like 8th Avenue, where we've, designed around those.
Right. Good point. Okay.
And one small little question, is there a reason why the buffer space goes from 5 feet to 4 feet in the changes? I don't know if that presents any door zone conflicts with parked vehicles.
Yeah, we don't have the plan exactly finalized. Like, this is sort of, a draft right now. So I think we can sort of talk through those things when we come back, like with a full proposal.
Really just a concept.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks again for expanding our bike and pedestrian space. I live on 54th Street, so I'm delighted.
Thanks, Charlie. Do we have any more questions from the public? Other than a comment about additional pedestrian space, it would be amazing. So we have some appreciation for some additional appreciation for the pedestrians out. All right, so I think in our, I'm gonna sort of wrap up this presentation and say, we, as a committee, we appreciate the work that DOT is doing towards making improvements as we go, as DDC comes in and does these capital projects, and we are interested to see more details on the final disposition of the plan, but we certainly appreciate the sidewalk extension, the proposed, proposed sidewalk extension under study, and yeah. Do I have a motion for a letter to that effect? And we can also bring up the concerns. I know that DDC does have a protocol for notification of neighbors. We normally get they have it on their website, which you can glean from the website, but they also have a notification process whereby they send our office notifications of remilling and resurfacing of roads and when they happen, and overnight work. So I just I mean, we can reinforce that. We hope to have the notification process in place for the full duration of this project, but DDC does have a process by which they notify neighborhoods through the community board, and I think the community board gets it out. Nellie, am I mistaken in saying that the community board gets it out to like the big buildings that are in the affected area?
If I'm not mistaken, the DDC sends out their own notices to buildings in the area. And
Oh,
they also, what they send out to the buildings, we also get as well.
Okay, so they've got their own listserv that notifies directly the buildings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know there was, I know Maria had sent something that said one of the buildings in the area was up in arms about the night work. It's the Nicole at 400 West 55th. Maybe we should just we'll just reach out to that building manager and say, are you on DDC's list for notifications? Because they're saying like, they're telling their tenants to go and complain to 311 about this work. And that's not really going to be super constructive. Okay. Anyway, I summarized a letter of support for these improvements. Does anybody have a motion in that regard and a second so we can take a vote?
I make the motion to draft the letter as stated.
Great.
Second.
Okay, so as a committee, we can vote on this letter. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks. Any opposed or present not eligible? Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Thank you so much, Mia. I appreciate the presentation and keeping us updated with this project. It's super helpful to us, and we will get the word out.
Great. I look forward to the update in the coming months.
Thank you so much. Okay. Now we're going to, if any of you joined late, what we're going to do now, the original item number 2 on the agenda is going to be postponed until December. The request for parking regulation changes on West 53rd Street because we had a site visit. We're going to, we discussed some regulation changes with Colleen, who was at the site visit. And we're going to put it on the December agenda so that neighbors on the street and in the area have an opportunity to review. We didn't want to put it on this agenda with such a rush. The meeting was, the site visit was only last week. But what we're going to do now is discuss the Penn Station Advisory Group, which is item 4B on. We're going to do it now. Hopefully, yes, okay. I was just seeing one notice from one of the interested residents of 53rd Street. Okay, so what we're going to do now is talk about the Penn Station Advisory Group. So let me see if I can. If Christine cannot jump in, she texted me and said her connection's terrible. I'm going to summarize this from my notes on it. Just give me a minute to pull them up. Okay. So, as you all know, there's work moving ahead from the New York State ESD, Empire State Development Corporation, on the Penn Station complex. This is the above ground component of the improvements in and around Penn Station and Moynihan Station. Governor Hochul, according to Robert Atterbury, who's our friend at Congressman Nadler's office, the governor announced the formation of a new group, the Station Advisory Group, or SAG, to allow all stakeholders to regularly meet with the railways and give their comments on the railroad plans. I think what we'd like to do is have a discussion of this topic and perhaps indicate our interest in our support for a forum, an advisory group like this, on such a complex issue, to make sure that all the stakeholders are heard on this issue. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of controversy. There are very tall buildings coming our way in and around Penn Station. And so that is the agenda item. It's to kind of introduce all the committee members to the idea that there is going to be this new group, the Station Advisory Group, for the stakeholders that are to meet regularly with all the parties involved and provide. So, do I have any questions or comments from any of the committee members? Rob, and then Viren.
What happened to Hell's Kitchen South Coalition? Is it still there? Are they still active, or did they sort of kind of disband and roll into this new group?
As far as I know, the Health Kitchen South Coalition was really genuine. I mean, they were really focused on Port Authority properties. Are you saying that we should kind of reactivate? We should ask them if they want to reactivate on Penn Station?
I was part of the group, and it just sort of kind of fell off. I don't know really what became of it, and I wasn't sure. I know Christine was part of it, Joe was part of it, a few others, and it's just sort of kind of like, I haven't heard anything from Tiffany in forever. Last time, I think there was a review for the environmental, but it would be really good if, like, maybe the group was sort of kind of asked, to be involved as far as on the community level and interact with this new group.
Interesting. I mean, I see where you're going with this, and I think it's interesting to have, because Hell's Kitchen South Coalition was very proactive in like envisioning a plan for what Port Authority might do with their redevelopment of the terminal and their associated properties, all the properties they own up and down the stretch from like 31st Street up to the building, and then all the kind of leftover spaces around the cuts. And maybe there is space for such an initiative to say, like, EDC, we know you've got these dreams and visions of this new part of the city with all office towers and all that, but we want to see something else. Viren.
Just a related question. Is this going to be a new group, or is it's an existing group? Do we know who is on that group?
I mean, there's been a sort of, I don't think the current group is as formalized as this group. There is a kind of working group that meets and has like it's kind of it's like a weekly or bi-weekly Zoom that provides each other, it's like an update group. This would be an advisory group, like sanctioned by the governor in effect. So I think it would be a more formalized process, a more formalized role for community members and stakeholders.
So how does the process work for someone from our committee to be on that group?
I mean, we are assuming that both boards would have members on the advisory group, and also like they're also talking about having some commuter groups represented on the board. So like LIRR commuter groups, NJ Transit commuter groups. So it would be a little more broad than the kind of like the kind of working group right now, and it would also be a little more formalized.
So we don't know who from CB4.
We don't know the who's yet. No, we don't.
Okay.
Do
we have a say in it? One last question. Do we have a say in that?
We as a committee can make a recommendation. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Gwen, did you have a question, or were you just unmuted?
Oh, I'm just on unmuted.
Don't worry. It happens to me all the time. Do we have any other questions or comments on this topic from the committee members? Okay, are there any questions in the Q&A or from any members of the public on this discussion of the Penn Station Advisory Group? That's information. It's a very large redevelopment scheme in our district. Well, adjacent in two overlapping community districts. I don't see any more questions. Pete.
The motor vehicle department, what's going to happen to that?
I honestly don't know. You're talking about the Express DMV that's on that block?
Yes.
Okay. And you're talking about like the process.
I think it's on 31st.
Yeah, you're talking about the prospect of that block being demolished by eminent domain, right?
Right, and also access.
Yeah, I mean,
access to the DMV.
In the last presentation that the new governor made, it wasn't that was off the table, but it was in some ways forestalled the southern expansion of the tracks. There was more of a focus on what was going on above ground. So I don't know. I do not know what would happen in DMV, but I also don't know how inevitable or how immediate the demolition of that southern block is.
Okay.
But this, I mean, that would definitely be raised in this group for sure. Not the DMV thing so much, but the eminent domain, the use of eminent domain. So I'm going to summarize and say, like, we can write a letter to the governor and CC all the involved electeds at the city level and at the state level to say, like, yes, absolutely, we want a seat at the table, and we endorse the formation of this advisory group so that all the stakeholders can convene and hear each other and have input on the EDC's development plan.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything, or does anybody have any? Does anybody want to make a motion so we can get the letter started? I guess I'm writing a lot of letters.
If we could just add in the bet about the Hell's Kitchen South Coalition, but I'd like to make a motion based upon what Dale has laid out that we move forward with the letter.
What's your? I'm sorry, just one second. What's your mention? What do you want to mention about Hell's Kitchen? Like, you want to say? Do you want to raise them as like an example of like how we've been, as a district, active and engaged with, stakeholders in shaping a large plan in our district? Or do you want to separately?
That's what I'm thinking. But also, if we can maybe reach out to the group and let them know that there is a group forming, because I think like Tiffany, who really isn't part of the community board, would be a really good stakeholder and have some really good input. I mean, I'm in school full time. As much as I would love to do this, it would be really difficult for me right now.
Oh, Tiffany's from the church.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We will definitely have a conversation with Tiffany and the folks who are heading up the Hell's Kitchen South Coalition. But I think your suggestion also to like point to it as a model of our engagement, our level of engagement, is good. Okay, sorry. Do we have a second on this letter? Because Rob made a motion. I see a second. Everyone in favor of this letter?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, or present not eligible, fantastic. All right. Now we have a discussion and vote on a proposal for open street changes at 22nd Street. As many of you are aware, there's been some conflict or controversy or disagreements on how the open street should be run at this site. And we have a friend of this committee, Melody Bryant, who's going to discuss this topic with us and come up with and propose some solutions. Hi, Melody.
Hi. So Nellie, are you there? Oh, there you are. Okay. So you can start with slide 1. Yes. So thank you to the Transportation Planning Committee for all your support and efforts to improve West 22nd Open Street. We've been running this open street for a year and a half now with a lot of support from our neighbors. And I wanted to give a summary of our findings and suggestions moving forward. Slide 2. 90% of residents surveyed said they favored our open street. Slide 3. Because it is quieter, because it is cleaner, because it is safer and so much nicer. Slide 4. 74% said they were in favor of more greenery. 64% wanted more bike parking. 49% wanted 5-mile-an-hour traffic. 47% wanted more seating at the corners. 32% wanted less double parking and more loading zones, and 24% wanted residential parking. Slide 5. We have received 4 planters, beautiful planters from the NYC DOT installed at the 8th Avenue entrance to West 22nd. This narrows the vehicular roadway width to a more manageable dimension and it requires fewer movable barricades. 6. We'd like permanent signage on either side of the 8th Avenue entrance to West 22nd, alerting drivers of the pedestrian nature of our street and discouraging through traffic. Slide 7. We suggest changing the roadway traffic signals to discourage vehicles from entering our open street. Slide 8. We suggest moving the existing loading unloading zone, which you can see here on the south side of West 22nd Street, further east to align with the boundary of the 8th Avenue Commercial Overlay Zone, which is C16A. This will allow more room to navigate the large commercial vehicles that deliver on our block and provide safe space for a neck down and for planters. Slide 9. We would like a neck down to be placed around the southeast intersection of West 22nd Street and 8th Avenue in front of the Chelsea Gourmet Deli at 234 8th Avenue. 10, please. We would like to apply for an NYC DOT city bench to be located near the southeast corner of West 22nd and 8th Avenue on the street side in front of Chelsea Gourmet Deli at 234 8th Avenue, either in the requested neck down area or on the sidewalk where there's existing space. Slide 11. The city bench would provide respite for workers, visitors, and residents who currently sit on fences around tree pits. This is constant. We really need seating here. Slide 12. On the north side of West 22nd Street, we suggest applying for an NYC DOT bike corral just east of the fire hydrant to be installed on the street to accommodate delivery bikes for the corner restaurant and to further signal to drivers that this is primarily a pedestrian zone. This night shot shows 5 bikes attached to tree pits and signage. Slide 13. This is the kind of bike corral we had in mind. We'd love for it to be protected by either planters or granite blocks. Thank you.
Great. I'm gonna put out a few questions, Melody. In your survey, can you give us like the baseline, like how many people were surveyed?
154.
Okay, that's a good number. And I see Colleen is here. Some of these questions are going to go to Colleen. A couple of the components of what you're proposing have like specific channels by which you go through them. Like, for instance, the bike corral, it's usually like a business that kind of makes the application and agrees to kind of maintain it if it's in front of their. Do you have like is the deli like on board with the bike corral, or are they?
Actually, the bike corral is on the corner of the Chinese restaurant, and yes, they are on board. Okay, great. And then the same with the seat. I think that, well, this not with the sponsor part, but the seat has like a specific process through the DOT whereby you request it. Is that right, Colleen? You're still on mute. We can't hear you, Colleen.
Can you unmute, Colleen?
Sorry, apologies. I didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah, definitely. There is a process involved where we will come out there and survey the site to determine if it's feasible or not to install the city bench.
Okay. But the proposal, like when an applicant says we would like a city bench here, is it usually coming from like a block association or a business?
It can come from a block association, a business, or a resident, either which way. Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
And now, okay, so those are smaller, manageable components of your plan. Let's get to the harder stuff. Colleen, what is the prospect for a neck down on an open street?
So, I mean, again, neck downs, it would have to be studied to determine if it's feasible to install one or not. And if it is, we will put in temporary materials, in the interim, and then, it would fall under a 10-year plan to do a whole reconstruction of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so my understanding is that in open streets, DOT is taking what's called a light touch approach. And where possible, there are neck downs on both corners. We can't have that here because there's a fire hydrant on the other side. But I just wanted to throw that into the mix.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And then there was also a parking regulation component to your plan. Is that right? You were proposing moving.
Yes.
What was it? Can you just summarize it again? It's a loading zone. It's a current loading zone, but you want to relocate it?
Right. We just want to push it east. In other words, the Chelsea Gourmet Deli, which you can see that when people park in that loading zone, they're just about going to hit our planters. So that's not the only reason to move it. We would like a neck down there, but we could slide it, literally just slide it. It's not really moving. It's sliding it further east so that there would be room for seating and the planters there.
Okay. So does the other end of the loading zone change? Like, is there some portion that is currently like a no parking reg or a 2-hour parking reg that's gonna, in your view, in what you're proposing, be changed to a loading zone?
That's a good question. I did not look at that.
Because that's how we have to present it. Like, here's this chunk of the sidewalk, and right now the current reg is this, and we are proposing this as a different reg.
Right. No, I have not looked at, the extent to which that parking would have to be changed.
Maybe we can get some clarification on that and take the steps necessary to, to request that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your answers, Colleen. I'm going to open this up to the committee for questions, comments. Do we have any questions or comments? Are we generally in support of Melody's efforts to make 22nd Street a more livable street? And sort of like, I think most people present are aware of the fact that the main conflict seemed to be from residents very near to the corner who were just kind of fed up with like the French barrier being dragged back and forth all the time, and like drivers knocking it over and it getting damaged. It was kind of the majority of the complaints seemed to boil down to operational complaints, which I totally get, that those French barriers are less than ideal for for a dynamic, for marking a dynamic street change or a change in the regs along the street. So that's part of the solution. And Melody, would you say that the planters have made things immediately better once they were in?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, the feedback from the neighborhood has been unbelievable. I had somebody contact me saying, whatever you're doing, please add me to your list of volunteers. A super came out of a building saying, my father was the super here. I've been on this block forever. There was never a sense of neighborhood before. This is really big. So that has been great. We have 2 barricades. We really just need one. The ones that we have now are more robust, and we put tennis balls under the feet, but the robust ones are heavier. So I have to say it's a problem dragging them. The thing is, they can be used as a hinge. If you just drag one corner, you can use it as a hinge, but people don't think about that. So there's a lot of dragging.
I mean, in general, I think it's really helpful to us as a committee because in general, this street, these problems, these conflicts are going to exist in any of the open streets because of the way, we're using these kind of very provisional barricades to delineate it. So like the questions of like gates or signage or like more user-friendly ways to open and close are going to spring up. And we'd love to see that. We'd love to see 22nd Street become like a good model for how an open street can be delineated and maintained.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the residents have done an outstanding job in partnering with DOT and maintaining the open street. We've received so many positive comments about the location with the planters and the fact that it really has made a difference overall in the street.
Oh, I'm glad that some of the positive feedback's getting to you.
Yeah, it was on Twitter.
Amazing.
Yeah, there were about 1,000 people who responded.
Yeah.
Amazing. Viren, did you have your hand up?
No, I was just going to make a suggestion. They could think about, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to make a suggestion. Maybe they could think about, the city could think about movable planters, on wheels or casters. Something similar to what they're trying to do at Meatpacking District, where the planter itself is movable. So then you don't need the barriers which are noisy.
Yeah, didn't Meatpacking do that on like, was that Little
West 12th?
Little West 12th? Yeah, that was cool what they did.
Anyway,
It's worth exploring.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions or comments from the committee? Okay, I'm gonna go to, I see one hand up. Tom? Nellie, can you bring Tom over? Tom has a question, I believe.
I brought Tom over.
Oh, thanks. Hi, Tom.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We can.
Okay, let me just start the video. Thank you. So I just I want to say, just as background, I was a community board member for about 6 years, 20 years ago, I guess. But I live on this street. Melody has done a woman's job. She's completely amazing. When I first saw what was being done, I could not be happier. It has quieted our street. It's made it cleaner. I don't have to clean my apartment as much because there's not as much dirt flying in the windows. It's just wonderful. I want to thank DOT and the community board for all their support. As Melody said, we got some planters. They look beautiful, and the horticultural group came out and planted them with winter plantings. They're absolutely gorgeous. Something that Melody and I have talked about is an electronic arm that would do away with this movable barricade. I don't know if that's even thought of in the city. I know there's something at FIT which is manual, but it would be really interesting if we could make 22nd Street a model for the city, even as a pilot for this electronic arm. I mean, other than that, oh, you had mentioned the signage with regards to moving the loading unloading zone. There isn't any signage other than the cars have to be moved for street cleaning. So there's basically it's a free for all on the street. You can park wherever you want.
Well, that's actually a reg. That's like a specific parking reg. So that would be we would be. Yeah, we would be changing like, no parking except during street cleaning to loading zone.
Oh, okay.
You have to identify the specific stretch, like how long is it? Like, where does it start? Like, we would need to get like, in order to bring it to DOT to consider a change to the regs, we would just need to tell them like, it's this many feet and it's currently this, and we want to change to this.
Oh, okay. And then with Melody, we had suggested aligning it to the C16A, I think it is, the overlay zone, just because I don't know how many feet into the block the overlay zone, the commercial overlay zone is, but there are commercial uses on the ground floor of those buildings. So to make it less annoying to local residents, moving it east and still keeping it within that C1 overlay, I thought would make sense.
So you're referring to like a zoning?
There is, yeah, there's, it's a R8B, I think, is the main zone. And then there's a C16A, I believe it is, overlay on 8th Avenue that goes into the block. Usually these are like 125 feet.
Yeah.
So the existing loading zone is not that far deep into the street. And then on the north side of 22nd, between 7th and 8th, that's a C zone totally. It's not even a residential zone because of the Chelsea cinemas being built.
I mean, I think it's good to have that understanding of the site-specific zoning, but I don't think we have to necessarily line up loading zones with the.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It was just a suggestion if it made it easier.
It's good to have like a baseline measurement to say this is what we're requesting, but yeah.
Okay. And so anyway, thank you for all your help. And, I'm so happy that Melody is on board because she really has created this amazing thing for the community.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Do we have any more questions or comments? I don't see any. Okay. I'm going to say thank you for the presentation, Melody.
Hey, Dale.
Yes, go ahead, Viren.
Sorry, I just saw a question in the Q&A, and I'm just going to sort of repeat the same thing because I had the same question. Is there a way for us to expand the open streets program in our district?
I'm sorry, the question is, are there plans to expand the open
No,
streets?
is there a way we can request for expansion of open streets in our district?
I think in this specific instance, we actually did in a prior letter say, didn't we say like we wanted the next block over to also be an open street, that it would make sense to, but we can put some language in there to say like, we're encouraged by the success of this, this specific block stewardship of the open street program, and we'd like to see more. And, do you have specific locations that you're thinking of?
I can come up with a couple of them.
Yeah, would you? That would be great. Like we can just like say, especially since you're like pretty close to this area, like here are some other candidates in the immediate area or what have you.
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah, thanks. So I'm going to say that we will have like a specific, like a set of responses to this proposal from Melody. And Nellie, you have this, right? You have Melody's presentation.
Yes, I do.
Send it to me and Christine. And it'll be great to have it. And then we can make a specific set of responses to say like, for the bench, go through this process. For the bike corral, go through this process. For this, we'll need the right. And for the bulb out, we can ask DOT to study it in light of the open street status of the street, and request that they have a look at it. So that would be our letter. Do we have a motion on that?
I'd like to make a motion that we go with the outline that Dale has set forth for us.
Yeah. And that also with Viren's suggestion about like, we love open streets and we'd like to see more in the area, and here are some possible candidates. Do we have a
And
second?
with that added onto it.
Yeah. And do we have a second on that? I see a second. Okay. Even Colleen is voting for this letter. All in favor of this letter that I am going to be writing? Once Karen sends me some text. Okay. Any opposed or present not eligible? Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Melody. All right. Old business has one item left in it because we already did B, which is sidewalk conditions. And honestly, does anyone have anything to bring up on this topic? Has come before us in the past. We conducted the survey of sidewalk conditions. We identified, specific problems of not just cracks, but also like pooling at certain intersections and broken or unusable cuts, ramps at intersections or absent ramps at intersections. It's an ongoing concern of ours that we are pressing. But does anyone but I'm also a little fried from all the other stuff in my head right now. So does anybody on the committee have any specific issues vis-a-vis sidewalk conditions? Oh, we've talked about seasonal snow removal issues, and especially in light of the pandemic with like absentee retailers. Alice, do you have, I see Viren's hand. Alice, did you want to say something on this topic?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, Viren.
I'm just going to repeat what I've said before. The potential of parking lane being made available for dining and other stuff, we should claim that lane for collective use, for recycling, and for trash collection, relieve the sidewalks, a whole bunch of things. I mean, the composting is something that the city is pushing for. That lane becomes a productive lane for the community in more ways than one. So, in many, many different ways, it can actually potentially become much more, of a resource for the community.
Right.
And even if it is not done across the entire district, few selective locations where it's done, things become easier.
I'm interested in that kind of like vision of reprogramming the parking lane for all these, especially, but then we'd have to make sure there are no conflicts between, for instance, composting and trash corrals and an open restaurant next to it.
Yeah. It's going to require planning. I mean, that's what you ask for is some sort of plan be in place before they do that. You don't want to do the same way with sort of open restaurants were implemented.
Yeah.
And then you figure out all the problems that come about.
I mean, that would definitely also ameliorate the crowding that happens on sidewalks, especially on garbage collection days and recycling collection days. But so that's a good point. I see a hand up from Blake.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. And this is kind of a parochial concern for me because it's right in front of my apartment building, but there is, continuous pooling alongside the sidewalk. And, I think it just kind of opens the bigger question of how someone, a resident like me can report something like this and track the progress. Since I understand that DOT probably has, a million different places that they need to fix, but I think it would be valuable to find where this one falls on the list or, what a timeline is for the resolution of an issue.
What's your corner, Blake?
It's around 52nd and 8th. So there's continuously water that pools alongside the southwest side of the street, alongside the sidewalk.
Colleen,
we've talked about this when these.
Yeah, actually, it's familiar, and I've been communicating with Blake about this. I've sent it to our roadway division, and Blake was really helpful in sending me some photos that really, showed the ponding condition. And I've asked him to revisit this one, Blake. So I'll keep you posted on it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Aside from aside from like debris, like I know sometimes debris clots the drains for water, but sometimes we've determined that pooling is sometimes the result of like improper grading when the street crew, yeah.
Yeah, and it can be in a sense where a contractor probably worked at the location, they restored the street back in kind, and the grading, it was probably done poorly. So what we are doing now is that when we're milling and paving the street, we're looking carefully at the conditions or the areas where we receive ponding complaints to make sure that the contractor regrade the streets properly. So it alleviates the ponding condition.
Great, thanks for that, Colleen.
I guess as a general question as well, I feel fortunate that Colleen, is responsive to this particular issue. I'm wondering how other residents tend to be in contact with DOT, about issues that they've reported to 311.
Sure. So what they do, 311 is the go-to agency to report any city issues or concerns that you may have, because once that is done, 311 will route that to, either if it's DEP or DOT. So we will get that. And when we get that, an inspector is assigned to go to the site to determine, if it's a ponding condition and what's going on in the roadway. And then the inspector will, submit his or her findings to that division, whether it's roadway division or another, unit in the agency. And then they will go out there to make every attempt or effort to do the wear and tear to alleviate the ponding condition. So in some cases, a constituent will reach out to the community board or to their elected officials. So that's how we get, a lot of the complaints as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Blake, I'm glad you asked that question. It's shown some light on that sometimes opaque seeming process. But,
yeah, I always say your community board is the most advantageous to reach out to get in touch with the city agencies as well, with the elected officials, because we interact with everyone at different levels.
Great, thanks, Colleen. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments regarding sidewalk conditions in the district? Okay, I'll just double check and see if there are any hands up from attendees. Candace is an attendee, a public attendee. Candace, do you have a question on this topic? If so, Nellie, will you bring Candace over?
Yes.
Brett has his hand up.
Oh, Brett, did you have your hand up as well?
I just wanted to put something on as a new business item just to get on the radar, but
okay. Let me see if Candace has a question, and we'll come back to that. Do we have Candace?
Having issues moving her over, so I'm just going to give her permission to speak.
Okay.
Oh, she moved over.
Okay. Hello,
Candace?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi.
Deal with what Blake was saying. So I'm on 30th, on the corner of 8th and more towards the corner of 8th. And there's the two corners, 30th and 31, where there's that pooling of just congestion of water, of people, the DOT roadways, the DOB. I don't know who to report it to. This mostly has to do with, on one side on 30th, it has to do with the construction. It's a scaffolding, and they're going to have to take their scaffolding down. And this whole time, it has been a slope that their roadway has been at, and he's kind of filled it in to where his scaffolding is. But once that scaffolding comes down, I'm wondering who's going to come and check to make sure now it's level. Because there in my area right there, it's water that comes up at least a foot and a half above, and it's because he has barriers, construction barriers. It's not really flowing again into the drainage system. I guess with water, when we have water, it's just a big hassle on the corner. I don't know if you guys know this
Yeah,
area.
you're talking about 30th on 8th, along 8th Avenue between
On
30th.
8th Avenue, the southwest side, and then on the southwest side again on 31 by the pizzeria when they just put a
Right.
cone just
And
when there's on the floor.
Which property has the scaffolding up?
The scaffolding is on the corner of 30th and 8th. The southwest corner. It is almost done. They've been there for almost 2 years now, and their barrier system actually like flies into the roadway because it's not weighted down. They has it tied with like tie wire.
Yeah, I've walked past that a lot. It's a little janky, that's for sure.
Yes, and we have like a homeless lady who has like set up shelter now, and everybody kind of walks around them. It's just, I know their scaffolding should be coming down soon. They're done with the building as far as use for scaffolding, but like I said, once they take that down, their roadway like drops down, and it's like a weird archway because he's paved and like done cement to meet up to certain points.
Okay, so thank you, Candace. I believe like a building owner is responsible for like restoring the roadway conditions once the construction is done. Is that fair? Is that a fair representation, Colleen?
Yeah, I mean, wherever they're working and whatever they touched in the roadway, they have to restore it back. And the contractor is responsible for making sure that you know, the area is leveled so that there's no pooling at that location. If it means by installing something that would elevate or to add, you know, maybe asphalt at the location. I can't give you an exact answer without not seeing what the site is. Yeah.
It'd also be, Candace, would also be helpful to have either photos and or the specific building address of the party that's responsible for the scaffolding.
Okay. I've definitely called in 311 about this. I just didn't know who to direct it now, like, because you said there was DOT roadways or the DOB. So I didn't.
Right. You have a point because it's kind of, it's a DOB, DOT handoff situation somewhat, but ultimately it's the contract. But do you know how to get in touch with the community board with either Jesse or Janine or?
Yes, I will.
Okay, yeah. And provide the street address and any photos that you have. That would be super helpful. And then they'll get them to me and Christine, how we can do follow up.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Candace, for bringing that to us.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about. I've walked by there a lot. It is kind of.
And there's the 31st one. Every other week, there's a cone upside down in the hole, which is nice. I guess to make sure we don't fall in.
They've got like a construction materials pen, like temporary there, and it's kind of a mess.
Yeah, Candace, send the photos and we'll take a look at it. We'll see what's going on there. I'll have an inspector go out there.
Okay, thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
Photos tonight.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Perfect.
Thanks. All right, Brett.
Okay, yeah, and I'm just gonna second what Candace is saying. That corner is a disaster, but I'll tell you that entire stretch on 8th Avenue from 31st to 29th is really bad. There's a lot of barriers on 29th around where the grates are, and it's like an obstacle course. And one thing I have brought up several times, and it's gone through one many times, there is a sidewalk that is caved in and pools on near 29th Street on 8th Avenue. I think the address is like 385 8th Avenue. And it's been like that longer than I've been in the neighborhood. I'm really concerned that Landmarks Commission is going to come in and designate it as a historic landmark, that sidewalk condition. So it's just,
I see what you're saying.
It's been, yeah, it always pools, it ices up in the winter time, and it's been like that for more than the 22 years I've been walking on that sidewalk. So anyway,
this is also on 8th Avenue.
It's my 29th Street. It's 385 8th Avenue, I think is the address. And that sidewalk has been dented in. And I know we've heard sometimes in the past, oh, well, there's a construction permit, so they're not really, we can't find them right now.
Oh,
But-
even in the Google Maps photo in front of that address, there's a pool of water.
Yeah, it's been like that. It used to be, was it Kim's like a bodego? It was like a,
Right.
it was bad. It was bad even then. And they've
Yeah.
long since gone. So
And it's currently an unoccupied storefront.
and they have they have permit stuff in the windows, and so I mean I don't know what's going on there, but that sidewalk has been like that forever, and but anyway, that's not what I was raising my hand.
Just to go back, just to let you know, the property owner is responsible for the maintenance and repairs of their sidewalk. If you have an address, I'll be more than happy to see if we issued a violation. If not, I can have an inspector go out there and take a look at the sidewalk.
Sure, it's 385 8th Avenue, I think is the address.
385 8th Avenue?
Yep.
Oh, I'm looking at Google Maps. That is the address of the building on the corner.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
But anyway, the thing I wanted to bring up, really to get it on our radar, because I think it might be a bigger issue to address, is that intersection at 31st Street and 8th Avenue. That's becoming kind of, I'd say, a transportation nightmare in our district. It used to be just mainly a problem because of the left turning and conflicting with the bicycles, and especially like on a rush hour. But the perfect storm that's brewing is there on the southwest corner is a bus station in that parking lot. There's a lot of queuing happening on the sidewalk. And now with Moynihan Station.
Flex bus.
Yeah, and now with Moynihan Station open and more people figuring out that they can get their Amtraks and their Long Island Railroad from the Moynihan Station. They don't have to go into the Penn Station across the street anymore. So that area is now becoming it's becoming more and more of a high volume drop-off zone. So we get a lot of cars that are standing right by the no standing sign. Every now and then you see an agent, and I have no idea who the agent works for directing traffic. But between the bus station and the drop-offs to the Moynihan Station, they're now starting to conflict a little bit with rush hour traffic, where everybody's trying to use the 31st Street shortcut to get to the well, it's not a shortcut, it's the longer way, but people think it's faster to get to the tunnel. So that and with more and more development going west by Manhattan West and everything going that direction, that's an intersection. I think it probably is a good idea for people in the committee to start just kind of watching it and coming up with some thoughts about how to address this, which it's only going to get worse with more and more development happening west down that street. But it's the bus station, Moynihan Station, making what was already a kind of a bad intersection into just a nightmare.
Okay. And does Moynihan have designated drop-off locations along that side?
I don't think there's anything official there, and I think that's going to be part of the problem. And what we probably want to, I don't know if it's a Port Authority question or who's going to be responsible for trying to come up with some ideas for that, because it's the whole area. I think it's in flux. They're kind of making things up as they go along a little bit there. So I just, but at some point, before it gets to just gridlock all the time during rush hour, and it's really kind of a dangerous condition for pedestrians and bicyclists not just trying to get across that street. We should probably just take a look at it, get out ahead before it really becomes something that we can no longer fix.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Colleen, do you know offhand if the station has like designated drop-off regs along 31st Street?
I would have to check that date.
Yeah, I don't know either. I know
I think it's a no standing sign right there, exactly where everybody goes and does the drop-offs. I'm pretty sure it's a no standing, but we can double check.
I mean, this is also an area I'm in and out of a lot. I'm gonna check it out because I think they did sort of, my sense is that Moynihan didn't follow through entirely with all the parking regs and the surrounding it.
Yeah, I mean,
some of
and I
it's
think
way.
much of that street has a lot of parking that's used all along 31st Street. I don't know if the post office is still using that as their staff parking or whatnot. So I mean, there's probably a solution down that street, except that it can be a very high volume street at rush hour, because that's one of the Lincoln Tunnel routes that gets used when all the more efficient entrances are backed up.
Right. And there's changes afoot further west as well. Okay.
Well, the good news is the street doesn't go through all the way to the highway, so it's not going to be a through street.
Right.
So so that's why I think there's a way to address the issues without having to. But anyway, I mainly just wanted to get that on people's radar, because I think sooner or later it's going to have to be addressed as an agenda item.
Great. Thanks for bringing it to our attention, Brett. Rob, did you have a question or a comment, or I see your hand up?
I also wanted to bring something to everyone's attention, put it on the radar. 10th Avenue, which goes north at 28th Street. And it's been for the past few days, but there's a crossing guard at like 26th and 10th Avenue, which is fine. Then 27th Avenue, 27th Street is right next to the Chelsea Park, and it's a small little road. No one really knows about it, so there's no traffic. What's happening is that the traffic going east on 28th Street, the people on 10th Avenue are literally blocking and in the cross traffic to where it was backed up all the way to West Side Highway on 28th Street because of traffic in the cross zone. And it's been going on for a little while. I was just thinking maybe if we could get someone out there just to observe it. Do you know how other areas where they don't want or they ticket you if you're caught inside sort of kind of that box or grid? Maybe if I know in certain places in New York they have that to where it's if you're in this box when the light turns red, you get a ticket.
Sorry,
and
Rob, I was trying to ask.
Go ahead.
I was trying to ask you a question. I realized I was on mute. Thanks, Joe. What is the exact intersection? Because I'm just looking at
10th Avenue and 28th. The 10th Avenue traffic won't let the 28th traffic go through because everyone's in the intersection.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at a list of new posts, and I don't see that for traffic agents, and I don't see that one on here, but there is one at 30th and 10th. And this, yeah, because we had an extensive discussion of traffic conditions along 10th Avenue further north last week, and we had a site visit. But yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like from what you're describing, an agent would be the best solution. And yeah, maybe we can request one for that location as well. I mean, traffic is out of hand these days, and I think the only way to deal with it right now is to have a lot of agents on the ground.
Yeah, it was recently resurfaced. The lines are there, but it doesn't seem like the permanent lines. I'm not sure.
Oh, I see. But so you're attributing a lot of the problems, the conflicts, to the fact that it's not permanently marked.
Well, no, it really shouldn't be. People should not be in the intersection when the light turns red, and they are. But if they, I think that they have temporary white lines on the sides. I don't know if it shows where like the crosswalks are yet up that far. I know where the school is. It does, but up at 28th, I'm not sure it does just yet. So people are sort of kind of getting caught in a red light, and the traffic is so backed up that they're in the intersection, and the traffic going east on 28th can't go anywhere, and they back up onto 11th and then almost onto the West Side Highway.
So Rob, what time of day is this happening?
It's about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, that's the rush hour peak. And you said the markings are faded? Like, is it the crosswalk markings?
No. What I'm saying is that it was recently resurfaced, and the lines are temporary, but I'm not sure that the crossing lines were there. I know over by the school the lines are there, but I'm not sure that the lines are there to show, hey, when the light turns red, you need to stop here.
You know what, I'll check, because I know the markings, we did do some temporary markings, and the reason why it's because of the weather. Our marking seasons is over as well, but I'm gonna double check the crosswalk just to make sure that you know, the markings go back. I mean, they will, but eventually it'll happen in spring, early spring.
Okay, it's rush hour traffic, obviously, but it's to the point that, you know, people going eastbound on 28th can't get through. And by the time one car does, that's barely it. They have to wait for like 4 lanes of traffic for people to get out of their way.
Right.
All right, well, thanks, Rob, and thanks, Colleen, for looking into that.
Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Do we have anything else? All right, well.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We have a motion to adjourn. Marking season begins in the early spring, Candace. Do we have a second on the motion to adjourn? All right, then. All those in favor, and we.
Aye. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
I'll be writing some letters and sending them around for your review.
Thanks for everything, Gail. Thanks, Christine, and everyone have a good one.